through a Ukrainian checkpoint from Belarus. Images circulating online showing what appear to be Russian helicopters sweeping in during an assault on a military base about 20 miles outside the capital of Kyiv. Another concern tonight, Russian vehicles at Chernobyl nuclear site. The Russians are now in control of that nuclear plant, some 60 miles from Kyiv. Of course, the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster back in 1986, and where there are still vast amounts of dangerous nuclear waste entombed there. Despite Russian claims tonight, reports of some missiles striking civilian targets falling on this neighborhood near the capital. And in Ukraine's second largest city tonight, Ukrainians now taking shelter in the subways in Kharkiv. Parents with their children huddling underground now for safety. Some asking, what does Putin want? Still unclear why this is all happening. The scene at bus and train stations tonight, the desperate attempt to get to safety, and world leaders are already warning tonight of a refugee crisis now looming. President Biden meeting today with his national security team and a virtual meeting with G7 leaders. The president then addressing the American people on Russian banks, the sanctions tonight, and moves to limit exports to Russia. The president saying our allies are in full support of these new sanctions. Moments ago here, I spoke with Secretary of State Blinken. I asked him why not sanction Vladimir Putin himself? And what are they seeing right now around Kyiv? Does the Biden administration tonight believe the capital will fall in the next 24 hours? But we're going to begin tonight with our senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell on the ground in Kyiv again tonight.
Tonight, Russia unleashing a brutal military assault on Ukraine, invading this vast nation from the north, south and east. The attacks seen in videos posted online from inside Ukraine. After bitter fighting, Russian forces now reportedly in control of Chernobyl, the destroyed nuclear plant just 60 miles from the capital Kyiv. US military sources say they believe the Russians are driving on Kyiv to surround and, quote, decapitate the government there. We saw fighter jets flying over the city this morning as emergency air raid sirens wailed. A large number of Russian helicopters seen on social media posts attacking a military base less than 20 miles from the center of the capital, triggering a pitched battle. The Russians launching over 160 ballistic missiles and rockets on military installations across Ukraine, but also reportedly hitting some civilian targets. Here, an enormous unexploded rocket's lodged in the ceiling of an apartment building in Kharkiv, close to the Russian border. And here, a jet missile wedged into a damaged road. Intense fightings reported around Kharkiv, and thousands have been forced to shelter in the subways. Columns of Russian tanks and armored vehicles are reported to be still pouring across the Ukrainian border tonight. Swarms of helicopters flying in low over the countryside, creating panic and terror for the people living there. Even so, military sources say less than half of Russia's 150,000 troops have entered the country. But they're now facing off against a Ukrainian army of 250,000, but that's less sophisticated and powerful. Europe hasn't seen an invasion of this size since World War II. Martial law's been declared across the country, and all men of fighting age and reservists are being mobilized. The capital's now under curfew, and like other major cities, roads were jammed today, with people trying to flee from the onslaught. There have been massive lines at gas stations, and residents desperate for cash are lining up for hours at ATMs. Three friends, all from Donbass in eastern Ukraine, in Maidan Square, where Ukraine turned its back on Russia in its 2014 revolution, showing support for their country.
We are not afraid. We are ready to defend our country.
Marichka Podolko is a morning news anchor in Ukraine. Tonight, her husband's at war and her children hiding in safety in the West.
I think that's the worst scenario that we could expect. I never expected it to be so bad, but I never expected Ukraine to be so calm and strong.
Шановні громадяни України.
Ukraine's President Zelensky trying to rally his country tonight, but acknowledging their losses. Officials say at least 40 Ukrainian service members have been killed, as well as dozens of civilians. Zelensky saying the fiercest fighting is in the south, where Russians are advancing from Crimea, adding that some Russian soldiers have been captured. Around the world, the Russian offensive is being condemned. The Pentagon tonight saying it'll now deploy 7,000 more US troops to Europe. President Biden met with his national security team this morning and said the world will hold Russia accountable.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
But Biden didn't sanction Putin himself, choosing instead new penalties on 4 more Russian banks and some of the country's elite. Putin's claimed he has no intention of occupying Ukraine and warned other countries not to interfere, threatening retaliation the likes of which, quote, you've never experienced in your history. But tonight, as Russian forces try to push deeper into the heart of the country, the question is how far will Putin go and how long can the Ukrainians